Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. Welcome to this very special session on one of the hottest topics in the industry, payment integrity. In fact, we are not only going to talk about payment integrity, we are going to talk about what's happening on the prepayment side, where a lot of buyers are also focusing on. With me, I have our two SMEs, uh, Suyash and Lloyd. Uh, I would request them to introduce themselves, but as they're introducing themselves, uh, I would also request all the audience to talk about or to mention in the chat box where you're joining from and what's one unique thing about the place where you're joining from. With that, let me ask Lloyd to introduce himself.
Thanks, Ankur. Hi, everyone. I'm Lloyd Fernandez. I'm a practice director at Everest Group, aligned to our healthcare business unit. My expertise kind of lie in the payer and provider segment, helping enterprises refine their sourcing strategies at the same time, helping a lot of service providers that operate within this space fine-tune their market messaging. So I've been tracking the space for quite some time now and quite excited to be as a part of this LinkedIn Live, speaking of one of the hottest topics in the payer landscape, that is payment integrity.
Sure. Now let me ask Siyash to introduce himself. Siyash is one of our SMEs for payment integrity, and he recently worked on a very extensive Peak Matrix report where he covered almost 50 different vendors focused on this particular space in the industry. So, Siyash, over to you.
Thanks, Ankur. Thanks, Lloyd. Hi, everyone. Happy to meet you all. I'm Suyesh and a senior research analyst with the healthcare research practice at Everest Group. Been tracking the industry from both a payer and provider markets from an outsourcing perspective for a long time now. As Ankur mentioned, I've been leading some of the payment integrity research efforts at Everest Group for a long time and been a part of multiple research reports focused on the payment integrity vendor landscape. Recently published a Peak Matrix report which evaluated more than 50 vendors, and we ended up profiling 24 of them. Also excited to be here and talk about this trending and upcoming topic in the healthcare sector. Looking forward to engage with everyone and hopefully deliver a great session.
Thanks, Suyash. So my first question is to Lloyd. Lloyd, when we talk about payment integrity, we know that it's a huge market, right? When we talk to payers, they also highlight how they are struggling with their MLR ratios, right? Recently, I saw news that uh, 5 out of top 10 payers have an MLR ratio of more than 90%, right? So, what do you think? Why is payment integrity becoming such an important topic in the industry, and why each and every payer, whether it's large size payers or small size payers, is focused on?
Well, Ankur, like you alluded to, right? Payment integrity has been on a lot of payers' radar for a long time now, right? Over the past few years. But in the last 12 to 18 months or so, right? We're starting to see this become or catapult to become one of the top strategic priorities for payers. And I think so you kind of alluded a bit to the answer there. The main reason is margins are being squeezed from every direction. You can talk about decelerating membership growth. You can talk about high cost to serve. MLR ratios that Ankur you mentioned, right? They have risen to the high 80s and even 90s for a lot of plans, and that's a very concerning concerning factor, right? Because that's a very low margin to kind of operate a lot of your administrative stuff on. And at the same time, we're also seeing things like new care models being adopted, right? Things like home health becoming important, and that introduces a new set of leakages that can kind of creep into the systems because the reimbursement, the way that those models work, are different from the traditional way, a fee-for-service hospital kind of a model tends to work. And honestly, the scale of this problem is quite staggering that we're talking about, right? For instance, CMS mentions that Medicaid itself has an improper payment rate of not of 5%, and that kind of translates to $31 billion, and that's not including Medicaid Part D components as a part of it. Similarly, a lot of your commercial plans as well are facing similar leakages, and for some of the large national plans, that's on a premium base of which is north of $100 billion. Now, at that scale, even a 10 basis point improvement in your payment integrity performance has the potential to save millions and millions of dollars in retained earnings and improve your margin. And this is one of the core reasons why a lot of payer executives are starting to see payment integrities as one of the few levers that are there, right? If done well, that is capable of producing hard near-term savings at scale, right? So, and subsequently, they're starting to invest in a lot of this as well. We've spoken to a lot of payers in the past couple of months yet. Suyash, you have led a lot of those calls as well. And as you know, as a part of those calls, two-thirds of those payers have indicated that they've indicated that they've increased their investments in payment integrity in the past in the past couple of months and for 2025 as well. One notable example that we have is a large national carrier has doubled its payment integrity analytics budget, right, to improve a lot of the previous stuff that they can kind of do. And as a result, they're projecting a 40 basis point reduction in their MLR ratios, which is a huge at the scales that they're operating. So to kind of summarize this, it's primarily margin pressures that are prompting a lot of health plan stakeholders across functions, may it be finance, may it be compliance or operations, to work cohesively around one single goal. Plug all the leakages so that we can shore up shrinking margins. And that's one core reason why it's starting to become such a top or key executive priority in the recent months or so.
Yeah, I think that's very comprehensive, and thank you, Lloyd. Uh, Suyash, my next question will take a leaf out of what Lloyd mentioned, right? I think you spoke with, I would say, many buyers, right? Not service provider, but buyers of payment integrity services in the last few months. Uh, I am really interested to know, as part of those conversations, were had those buyers highlighted their key challenges? And if you can summarize maybe those key challenges and talk about the top three or four, that would be very helpful. I think Suyash, you're on mute.
Apologies for that. So great question, Ankur. And as we speak about any industry or any area, challenges are always a part of, our day-to-day life. So having said that, in payment integrity as well, as I was interacting with, multiple buyers across the spectrum who purchase these payment integrity solutions, they mentioned they have been facing a lot of pain points. So across multiple conversations, I heard that payment integrity operations are often fragmented, meaning different teams are handling different parts of the cycle. This was one of the key pain points that they highlighted. So there would be instances when a separate team is handling FWA, a separate team is handling clinical edits, a separate team is handling COB. So this is never, they are never able to get a unified view, which leads to a lot of inefficiencies and gaps. Another issue which they highlighted is lack of real-time data integration, making it hard to act early in the claims process, which eventually brings us to the biggest challenge, that is post-pay models are inherently reactive. Problems are being found after the money is out the door. Now, this is the biggest pain point. If we have to sum it up, everything comes to this, that we are chasing dollars once we have paid it. This leads to, as the going says, one thing leads to the other, and this creates a lot of issues throughout the claims life cycle. This increases admin costs, time lags, patient experience. Everything comes to a halt due to the entire cycle which we follow after paying the money and then trying to find out the errors in the claim. Finally, they also mentioned that some other pain points for them are inability to review claims timely in prepay, over automation without clinician insight, lack of transparency, along with inadequate and fragmented reporting, and insufficient product and dispute resolution. Now, all of this is happening while the volume and complexity of claims are increasing. So there's growing frustration that the current model isn't sustainable, and that's pushing the payers to rethink their approach, which naturally brings us to a more proactive approach to dealing with the entire payment integrity model than a reactive one.
Sure. And I think that's very interesting, Suyash. And I'll take a leaf out of one of my recent conversations with a large healthcare payer. In fact, one of the top five payers. And I think the payers, the executive with whom I had conversation, he mentioned the same thing, right? They have almost 17 vendors for payment integrity, and having 17 vendors for just one of, you know, tens of functions that you are doing, that's a nightmare. So I think great insights, and thank you for that. Uh, Lloyd, now moving from recovery to prevention, right? That's a very interesting concept. We are hearing about it a lot, right? But I would really love to understand that what do you think is driving this shift, right? What are the key factors because of which now payers want to shift left?
Yes, Ankur. And like you mentioned, right, we've been hearing about prepayment, I think, for the past couple of years, but we are right now seeing that actually take place in the player landscape. And that shift from prepayment to post-payment is really about getting ahead of the problem, right? Suresh already alluded to certain portions of it, right? Post-payment recovery is inherently reactive. It's like trying to clean up after you spilled a glass of milk, right? You're chasing dollars once it's already paid. That's costly, that's ineffective, and definitely time and resource consuming. On the other hand, prepayment integrity is all about bringing a lot of precision upfront, preventing errors before the payments can be made. And that has several benefits and advantages which are acting as core drivers for it, right? First and foremost, the key advantage. First, it drives higher cost savings, right? And better ROI. For instance, every dollar you put in prepayment is 3 times cheaper than the amount spent for you to claw back that same claim if it's done via the post payment method. Secondly, we are starting to see prepayment definitely has a lot of benefits in reducing provider attrition, and that's very useful for some of the mid-sized plans that are, that do not really have that strong network in place of sorts. Because denials reduce, you're not really going back weeks or months later trying to ask for refunds, for justification. So just the entire relationship with providers tend to improve in that case. Third, it's also some of the regulations is impacting it, right? We've seen that the IDR process in the No Surprises Act, that requires a lot of prepayment work that will prevent you from getting issues with regards to post-payment delays. Similarly, the CMS revamped the audits for payment integrity, and that also has a timeline constraint with regards to clawing back or details. So all of this can be mitigated if you have a strong prepayment program in place. And lastly, but I would say not the least for sure, the industry is moving to value-based care. Value-based care is starting to be mandated by CMS. Yes, it'll take some time for it to fully get deployed, but we are seeing quite a good adoption with regards to that. And value-based care introduces a lot of complexity in reimbursements because it's no longer fee for service, it's more outcome driven. In that kind of an environment, post-pay is just not as effective, right? Because the way you'll be paying claims is not related one-to-one for a particular service. And hence, you'll require a strong prepayment program of sorts to kind of operate effectively in a value-based care setting. Now, a lot of these benefits that we're talking about, Ankur, right, such as cost and ROI, these are some things that payers already knew about, right? Years ago, as we're hearing about it, they knew the advantages that prepayment had in terms of cost. They knew the advantages in terms of ROI. Yes, value-based care is a tad bit new, but if that's the case, why is a lot of that movement happening now? And the core reason for that is, I would say, advances in technology. As of today, we have access to real-time analytics, AI, which can be deployed at a significantly lower cost than what it was a couple of years ago. Secondly, we're also starting to see payers have made a lot of investments in the past 2 years to modernize a lot of that core infrastructure, right? They're moving from legacy, they've moved from legacy systems to cloud-based systems. They've adopted BPaaS and interoperability and mandates across the value chain. And this has made deployment of such prepay solutions a lot more easier and effective in today's day. And as a result, I think I'm referring to a recent article that you've written. You've seen that prepayment investments are growing at twice the rate as that of post-pay investments of sorts, right? And if you look at the market, actually, it does indicate this. We've seen Cigna and Zealous partner for DRG validations. We've seen Wellmark, BCBS, and Optum expand their scope of deal to include prepayments. Similarly, we've seen BCBS Rhode Island as well as launching a prepayment chart review programs, all in the last 6 to 8 months, if I'm not mistaken. So it's primarily that prepayment integrity is moving just beyond, cost saving. It's starting to become strategic, and getting it right the first time is no longer optional. It's mission critical, especially if you're operating in things like home healthcare and you have value-based engagements, as a part of your core offering that you engage providers with. So that's one of the core reasons why we're seeing that, hey, prepayment is starting to become important. A lot of benefits across the board, and the technology is there to kind of enable a lot of it now.
Sure. This is interesting, Lloyd. And I think one of the things which everyone is wondering about is that, yes, technology has disrupted some of the already established models, right? Including in payment integrity, where it's enabling payers to shift left. But a lot of us, right? A lot of us are skeptic about the future. We really want to understand that it isn't just like some of the other moments in time where technologies came, right? But they were not able to made made the impact which was expected out of them, or or is it a moment in time where everything is likely to get disrupted significantly and disrupted permanently, right? So that's where I would also like to understand how do you see the future of payment integrity and specifically the future of prepayment side of payment integrity? And I think I'll invite Suyesh to answer that.
Sure, thanks, Ankur. So, I mean, definitely there are a lot of narratives going around about how the future of payment integrity would look. And no doubt that AI has come into play. Every company is talking about the integration of AI in their workflows, in their tools, in their solutions. The coming times, the next 5 years, I would say, are going to be really exciting in terms of seeing where do we end up. Because as of today, the coming 2 3 years is when we'll be exploring with AI a lot. That what can it deliver? What kind of regulations will it withstand? How exactly are we using it? What kind of accuracy will it provide? But having said that, I would also want to share the most common themes that I heard about uh, during my interactions with the both the buyer and the service provider community. So most likely payment integrity is going to evolve from a set of disconnected programs to a unified strategy that spans the entire claims life cycle. It will be less about prepay versus post pay, and more about a holistic claim management that utilizes data and intelligence at every touch point. Also, there have been, that as it goes without saying, and as we discussed earlier, AI and ML will have greater adoption for sure in future in areas such as pattern detection, integration of clinical and member data, and more of context-backed decision making. But more importantly, the conversation will shift from recovery of dollars to cost avoidance and accuracy being the new KPIs. Another interesting area which we have seen both the communities talk a lot about is provider education. Now, the entire goal of shifting towards left or shifting towards prepay is to reduce the overheads or the extra amount of efforts we are putting to chase and recover those dollars. Hence, provider education is an area which will pick up in the coming years and will stop the claim from being submitted in a wrong way at the very beginning that will make us go even left from prepayment. So these are some of the themes where the future is headed towards. To sum it up, I would say that the future will see increased collaboration between payers and providers, where payment integrity isn't just about audits, but more about mutual accuracy and value.
Sure, very interesting. So it seems the future looks great, right? But to reach that future, uh, there are challenges and there are mitigation strategies that payers should take into account as they are working towards that. So one of the things which Lloyd, I would want you to focus on or talk about is as payers are thinking about moving from current state to the future state, what are the strategies they have uh, have it they have in their minds, and what do you think are the areas where payers will invest in the next few months or few years?
Sure. But and as we're talking about some of these strategies payers have in mind, right? You can kind of bundle it into two broad buckets. First is payers are first trying to understand, hey, what functions they want to own internally. They're starting to see some of the functions being insourced, and there is some strategic reasons for it. And then what to outsource and really how to outsource to external partners, right? Now, talking about that internal bucket, what do they want to kind of own internally? Now, traditionally, a lot of players used to try to develop a lot of their capabilities in the PIO office. And while this approach still holds a lot of value, it probably provides value in certain strategic areas, right? Where you're talking about things like fraud-based and abuse, you're talking about policy development, and you're talking about appeals management. And even in those cases, you need to have the right infrastructure, you need to have the right talent, and need to have the right scale to kind of make this possible. And that also comes with trade-offs, especially if you don't have a lot of this. How are you going to deal with long development times next? How are you going to deal with high fixed costs? How are you going to keep up with the ongoing need to kind of adapt your systems to fast evolving fraud tactics? And that's where a lot of the outsourcers starting to come into place. So they're trying to understand that, hey, what are some of the strategic functions where we really want control, what we can bring in house, but at the same time, given the resources we have, ensure that we can evolve them and ensure that they are up to date, and certain things are being outsourced. Now, that's from an insourcing standpoint. From an outsourcing standpoint, currently, if you look at the broader ecosystem, right, a lot of players are relying on a fragmented web of external vendors, right? More than 90% of health plans have more than 3 PI vendors. 40% use more than 5, and you alluded to a fact that there was a vendor that used even 17. That's a huge amount of vendors for one particular function. That causes siloed operations. There's operational sprawl because of that. There's definitely fatigue in just managing the vendors out there. And accountability becomes a huge issue, especially when you're talking about things like provider education, right? So you alluded to that being one of the important factors out there. But hey, who will take accountability for it when we have a dozen of vendors managing a single function? And to kind of adapt to that, we're starting to see that consolidation take place within this particular place, right? Hey, instead of having X amount of vendors operating in siloed, can I consolidate it into one or two, into a couple of strategic partners that can kind of offer me an integrated outcome-driven engagement model to enable or to solve for a lot of those challenges that were previously mentioned by Suyash, right? Operating in silos, things just do not work. So if I put one and two together, that hey, the internal strategy and what they're doing from external, what is really emerging is a deliberate hybrid outsourcing strategy, right? One that kind of preserves internal ownership of core functions, and while outsourcing execution heavy, I would say scalable functions, but that requires constant updation, right? Things like machine learning engines, clinical chart reviews, and provider engagement. So we're starting to see this hybrid model being adopted, with consolidation taking place in a lot of the outsourcing landscape that is happening. Apart from that, we've already spoken about prepayment. So within even the prepayment, as plans are moving to it, they are avoiding making the same mistakes that they've done within post-payment, right? They're trying to pick up a couple of vendors that have a huge scope of services that can do several functions in cohesion, and systems can kind of speak to one another. And that is also resulting in a slight shift in the way payment integrity is being sold. SaaS is one of the biggest models out there, but payment integrity as a service is starting to pick up as well. Yes, smaller plans are more open to it. They don't really have a lot of systems in place, but that's also something a lot of large plans might want to move to as they have their interoperability initiatives take full step within the ecosystem also. So we're starting to see that hybrid model with internal control for certain specific functions, and from an external standpoint, consolidation, strategic outcome-driven models, not really the bounty hunting models that are existing within this space, and prepayment being one of the top initiatives that is kind of taking place. So just to kind of summarize what I was talking about.
Sure. I think that's very, very insightful, Lloyd. And one thing I'll add is that when we were doing the recent peak metrics, one of the capabilities which also come into fore, and we were slightly surprised by that, was the the requirement to set up payment integrity offices, right? So I think your point around many payers wanting to bring certain functions in-house, I think that that really resonates. And in a way, if you think about setting up PIO offices and prepayment are linked, right? Because you're moving away from the traditional model where everything is contingency based, everything is post payment, right? You want to move things prepayment. You want to set up payment integrity offices. So I think it makes sense. So yes, my question to you is, I think we talked about the strategies, right? But as the payers are thinking about their sourcing strategies, what are the top three uh, factors or top three capabilities that payers are looking for from their service provider partners, right? So, what should service provider partners have as they're thinking about supporting payers on their payment integrity or in their prepayment initiatives?
Sure, Ankur. So there has been definitely a shift in terms of selecting a partner. Earlier, you would see we had, similar algorithms, similar rule-based engines, and a set of code sets that were being validated in each of the claims that we received. But those times have gone now, and there are multiple niche players also coming up with the market who have taken the technology game to a whole next level. Hence, payers have a lot of options in today's world, so at the same time they are being more selective. And when it comes to partnering with a payment integrity vendor, some of the key things which they are looking at are real time or near real time capabilities, a solution which can keep up with the speed of claims processing. Second, interoperability, as Lloyd mentioned, is no doubt a game changer. Integration capabilities with the pay's data environment, including EHR, provider portal, and clinical data, is a must have requirement. And finally, as we spoke earlier as well, AI is going to be a hot topic for the next couple of years for sure. So AI powered analytics and not just rule based flagging, but intelligent claim scoring, predictive insights, and even NLP to understand unstructured notes. This has been a very good use case that I've heard in multiple conversations. So these are the three key things that payers are looking for in today's environment when they speak to partner with someone. And perhaps most importantly, payers want transparency. They want to understand how the decisions are being made, how the algorithms are being how the algorithms are working at the back end, what are the insights that the algorithm is delivering, so that it is not just that recovery is being done on a particular claim, but the team is learning from the insights and improving their workflows on a day-to-day basis. In short, the ideal partner in today's world is someone with a tech forward mindset and flexible plus transparent approach with deep domain knowledge and the ability to support a shift from recovery to prevention.
Sure, sure. And Suyash, I would also ask you to talk about some of the work that you are doing in payment integrity. So talk about maybe our recent peak matrix report and the upcoming reports, that how what you're trying to cover in some of those reports.
Definitely, Ankur. So, having seen the so many developments in the past couple of years in the payment integrity landscape, the Everest Group, healthcare research team at Everest Group has published some very interesting reports in the payment integrity market. I'll specifically talk about the ones which focus on the vendor landscape initially. So, we recently published the Payment Integrity Solutions Peak Matrix Assessment 2025, in which we started by evaluating a very broad set of vendors in this space, but that came down to 24, which we choose to profile on a range of dimensions across our axes. So we kept in mind things like market adoption, market penetration, client portfolio mix, value delivered, tech stack, vision, strategy, services capability, the innovation investment that they are making, and how do they engage and deploy their solution with their clients. So we assessed 24 firms and presented a holistic view of the market, that who is standing where. And the audience can also download a complimentary abstract of the report with the help of the link in the comments. The report gained a lot of traction with both the communities, and we have been hearing a lot of inquiries as to what were the key findings behind the report and what was the framework that we used to report. So keeping that in mind, the audience can also schedule a follow-up conversation with our team to understand more in detail about the report that we published and the kind of work we are doing in the payment integrity space. And as we spoke earlier as well, there is a lot of disruption happening in the market with the advent of AI. So we have seen a lot of niche vendors coming up with AI based platforms and solutions who are taking on the challenge to disrupt the space, because this was earlier being dominated by two three major players. So we are also going to publish in the next quarter market report focused on these niche and upcoming vendors called the Payment Integrity Trailblazers, which will be an interesting place to see that which are these companies, smaller companies who are taking up this challenge and building a name for themselves in a very crowded and saturated market.
Sure. And I think you talked about AI. So we also have a question from Preet that Gen AI, right? Everyone, I think every industry is being disrupted by Gen AI in some shape and form, right? So in payment integrity, are we seeing a lot of adoption and use cases uh, happening? So Suyash, Lloyd, any one of you, if you
Yeah,
can ping.
definitely, Preet. I mean, great question. And I would say more than, three-fourth of the vendors in the market have already started to utilize Gen AI in their operations in one way or the other. We have seen, as we spoke earlier, we have seen these upcoming and niche vendors building solutions with the core being Gen AI. But legacy and traditional vendors are more towards being a more cautious and implementing Gen AI in their backend workflows, and they're trying to wait on how the regulatory landscape plays. So definitely there has been a lot of talk about Gen AI. Things are already underway. Many vendors have adopted Gen AI, but as we said earlier, how will this eventually end up is something which time will only tell.
Sure. And I think it was a short, succinct, and good discussion. To all the listeners, to all the people who took time out to have to saw us having this conversation, you can download a complimentary abstract, or you can also reach out to any of us for a follow-up conversation. Right? We are covering this market pretty extensively, and we'll be happy to hear your questions and also provide market perspectives. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.